we've still got the best workers in the world. We've got the best businesses in the world. We've got the best scientists in the world and researchers. We definitely have the best colleges and universities in the world. So, especially for the young people out here, I want you to understand, there is not a country on earth that wouldn't gladly trade places with the United States of America. But we've got work to do. We've got work to do. And the path I'm offering may be harder, but it leads to a better place. And I'm putting forward a practical, five-point plan to create jobs and to grow the middle class and rebuild this economy on a stronger foundation. So just in case you guys missed the convention, and, I know you didn't miss Michelle, but, let me reprise what this plan consists of. First, I want to export more products and outsource fewer jobs. When my opponent said we should just let Detroit go bankrupt, don't boo, vote. That would have meant walking away from an industry that supports 1 in 8 Ohio jobs. It supports businesses in 82 of 88 Ohio counties. So when he said that, I said, no, I'm going to bet on America. I'm betting on American workers. I'm betting on American industry. And today, the American auto industry has come roaring back with nearly 250,000 new jobs. And now you've got a choice. We can give more tax breaks to companies that are shipping jobs overseas, or we can start rewarding companies that open new plants and train new workers and create new jobs right here in the United States. Now, I understand my opponent has been spending some time here in Ohio lately, and he's been talking tough on China. Have you been hearing this? He's been talking tough on China. He says he's going to take the fight to him. He's going to go after these cheaters. And I've got to admit, that message is better than what he's actually done about this thing. It sounds better than talking about all the years he spent profiting from companies that sent our jobs to China. So, when you hear this newfound outrage, when you see these ads he's running promising to get tough on China, it feels a lot like that fox saying, we need more secure chicken coops. I mean, it's just not credible. Now, Ohio, I'll tell you what I've done, because I'm not just talking the talk. I've woken up every single day doing everything I can to give American workers a fair shot in this global economy. So, we've brought more trade cases against China in one term than the previous administration did in 2. And by the way, we've been winning those cases. We stood up for auto workers against unfair trade practices. When Governor Romney said stopping an unfair surge in Chinese tires would be bad for America, bad for our workers, we politely declined his advice. We went after China on that, and we got over 1,000 American workers back to work, producing American tires. So when you want, if you want to know who's going to actually fight for workers and fight for American jobs when it comes to trade, you can look at the records. You can look at who said what before election time. And right now, I'm asking you to choose a better path than the one that my opponents offer. One that helps big factories and small businesses double their exports. That sells more goods stamped with Made in America to the rest of the world. We can create 1 million new manufacturing jobs in the next 4 years with the right policies. That's what I'm fighting for. That's why I'm running for a second term as president. That's what's going to be important to Ohio. Second part of the plan, I want us to control more of our own energy. You know, after 30 years of inaction, we raised fuel standards so that by the middle of the next decade, your cars and trucks will go twice as far on a gallon of gas. We've doubled the amount of renewable, clean energy we generate from sources like wind and solar. There are thousands of Americans, including here in Ohio, who have jobs today building wind turbines and long-lasting batteries. Today, America is less dependent on foreign oil than any time in nearly 20 years. So, now you've got a choice between a plan that builds on this progress or a plan that reverses it like my opponent suggested. See, and this is a clear plan, clear difference, because I will not let oil companies write this country's energy plan. And I want to stop oil companies collecting another $4 billion in corporate welfare from our taxpayers. We have a better plan. Let's take that money we're giving to companies that are already hugely profitable. Every time you go to the pump, they're making money. They don't need a tax break. Let's use that money and invest in wind and solar and clean coal technology. You know, let's help farmers and scientists harness new biofuels to power our cars and our trucks. Let's put construction workers to work retrofitting homes and factories so they waste less energy. Let's develop a 100-year supply of natural gas that's right beneath our feet. And if we do all these things, we can cut our oil imports even more, cut them in half by 2020, and support hundreds of thousands of new jobs in the process. That's why I'm running. That's what's going to be good for Ohio. Number three, I want to give more Americans the chance to get the skills that they need to compete. You know, that's a good idea. Education, you know, it was my gateway to opportunity. That's the only reason I'm standing here. It was Michelle's path to opportunity. It's the path more than ever to a middle-class life. Today, millions of students are paying less for college because we took on a system that was wasting billions of dollars using banks and lenders as middlemen on the student loan process. We said, let's give that money directly to students, and as a consequence, millions of students are getting more grants, and we kept interest rates on student loans low. All right? That's what we fought for. That's what we fought for. We already got that done. So now you've got a choice, because my opponent, he would gut education to pay for more tax breaks for the wealthy. That's one choice. That's door number one. Door number two, we can decide that the United States of America should never have a child's dreams deferred just because she's in an overcrowded classroom or a crumbling school or has outdated textbooks. No family should have to set aside an acceptance letter to a college like Bowling Green because they don't have the money. You know? No company should have to look for workers in China because they can't find workers with the right skills here in the United States. That's not the future that we want. So, Ohio, I need your help because I want to recruit 100,000 new math and science teachers. And I want to improve early childhood education. I want to give 2 million more workers the chance to learn skills that they need at community colleges that will directly lead to a job. And I want to work with college presidents to keep tuition costs down. We can cut in half the growth of tuition if we're focused on this. We can meet this goal. You can choose that future. That's why I'm running, because I want to make sure that the folks coming behind me have the same opportunities I had. That's what America's about. Number 4, I want to reduce the deficit without sticking it to the middle class. Now, I've already worked with Republicans in Congress to cut $1 trillion in spending, and I'm willing to do more. I put forward a very specific plan, $4 trillion in deficit reduction. I want to simplify the tax code so that it's fair. But I also want to ask the wealthiest households to pay a higher rate on incomes over $250,000. The same rate we had when Bill Clinton was president. Our economy created nearly 23 million new jobs. We had the biggest surplus in history. And by the way, a whole lot of millionaires did really well too. Because that's how you grow an economy. I want to keep taxes low for middle-class families and working families. But if we're going to close the deficit, we've got to ask folks like me to do a little bit more. And understand what happens. When you get a tax break, what do? You spend it. Because times are already tough. So maybe you trade in finally that 10-year-old car. Or maybe you buy a computer for your kid who's about to go off to college. And that means business now has more customers. And they make more profits, which means they hire more workers. And the whole economy does better. That's how you grow an economy, from the middle out, not from the top down. And that's also how we'll reduce our deficit. Now, in fairness, my opponent has a plan too. The problem is it's missing what President Clinton called arithmetic. So you just understand, my opponent and his allies in Congress tell us somehow we can lower the deficit by spending trillions more on new tax breaks for the wealthy. No matter how many times they promise to reboot their campaign, no matter how many times they start saying they're going to explain the specifics of this thing, they can't. They won't. They can't say how they'd pay for $5 trillion in tax cuts without raising taxes on middle-class families. They can't explain how they're going to pay for $2 trillion in new military spending that our military has said won't make us safer. They can't explain it because the math doesn't add up. Now, my opponent may think it's fair that somebody who makes $20 million a year, like he does, pays a lower rate than a teacher or an auto worker who makes $50,000 a year. But I disagree. I don't think that's fair. I don't think it helps grow our economy. I refuse to ask middle-class families to give up their deductions for owning a home or looking after their kids just to pay for another millionaire's tax cut. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. I'm not going to ask the students here to pay more for college or kick some kids off a Head Start or eliminate health insurance for millions of Americans who are poor or elderly or disabled just to give myself a tax cut. We can't afford it. And I want you guys to know I will never turn Medicare into a voucher. You know, no American should ever have to spend their golden years at the mercy of insurance companies. They should retire with dignity and the respect that they've earned. We'll reform and strengthen Medicare for the long haul, but we'll do it by reducing the actual cost of care, not by dumping those costs onto seniors. And we're going to keep the promise of Social Security. We'll strengthen it, but we're not going to turn it over to Wall Street. We're not going to do that. Now, obviously, Governor Romney and I have a lot of differences when it comes to domestic policy, but our prosperity here at home is linked to what happens abroad. 4 years ago, I promised to end the war in Iraq. We did. I said we'd responsibly wind down the war in Afghanistan, and we are. You've got a new tower that's rising over the New York skyline, and meanwhile, al-Qaeda's on the path to defeat, and Osama bin Laden is dead. We made that commitment. But, you know, as we saw just a few days ago, you know, we still face some serious threats in the world. And that's why, as long as I'm Commander-in-Chief, we're going to maintain the strongest military the world's ever known. And when our troops come home and they take off their uniform, we're going to serve them as well as they've served us. Because nobody who fights for America should have to fight for a job when they come home. I believe that. My opponent's got a different view. He said the way we ended the war in Iraq was tragic. He still hasn't explained what his policy in Afghanistan will be. But I have, and I will. And one more thing, I will use the money we're no longer spending on war to pay down our debt and to put more people back to work, rebuilding roads and bridges and schools and runways. Because after a decade of war, it's time to do some nation building right here in Ohio, right here at home, right here at home. So, this is the choice that you face. This is what this election comes down to. And over the next 41 days, you will be seeing more money than has ever been spent, and a whole bunch of it on the other side from folks who are writing $10 million checks to these super PACs. And they'll tell you that bigger tax cuts and fewer regulations are the only way to go. Their basic argument is, since government can't do everything, it should do almost nothing. If, you know, their basic theory is you're on your own. If you can't afford health insurance, hope you don't get sick. If a company is releasing toxic pollution that your kids are breathing, well, you know, that's the price of progress. If you can't afford to start a business or go to college, just borrow more money from your parents. You know, let me tell you something. That's not who we are. That's not what this country is about. We don't think government can solve all our problems, but we don't think it's the source of all our problems either. Just like we don't think that folks who are having a tough time are our problem, or welfare recipients are our problem, or corporations are our problem, or unions are our problem, or immigrants, or gays, or all the other groups that we're told to blame for our troubles. Because here in America, we believe we're in this thing together. We believe that all of us have responsibilities. We believe we've got responsibilities to look after ourselves and work hard and show individual initiative, but we also believe we have responsibilities to each other and to this country and to future generations, to make sure that America continues to be the place where there's more opportunity and possibility than any other nation on earth. That's what we believe. That's what we're fighting for. We understand that America's not about what can be done for us, it's about what can be done by us together, as one nation and as one people. And that's what I've always said. That's why I ran for this office, because I have faith in you. Now, 4 years ago, I told you this wasn't about me. It was about you, the American people. You were the change. You are the reason a mother in Cleveland right now doesn't have to worry about her son being denied medical coverage because of some pre-existing condition. You made that happen. You are the reason. You're the reason a factory worker who lost his job in Toledo or Lordstown is back on the line, building some of the best cars in the world. You did that. You're the reason a student in Akron or Columbus or Bowling Green has some help paying for a college education. You're the reason a veteran can go to school on the new GI Bill. You're the reason a young immigrant who grew up here and went to school here and pledged allegiance to the flag is not in danger of being deported from the only country she's ever known. You're the reason some outstanding soldier won't be kicked out of our military because of who they are or who they love. You're the reason why thousands of families have finally been able to welcome home their loved ones who served us so bravely, to say, welcome home. You know, and the interesting thing is, my opponent maybe doesn't understand this concept about how change happens, because I made this point down in Florida. I said one of the things we learned is we can't change Washington just from the inside. You got to change it from the outside. You change it with the help of ordinary Americans who are willing to make their voices heard. And you know, my opponent got really excited. He heard me say this. He changed his speech. He said, I'm going to get the job done from the inside. That's what he said. I'm going to get the job done from the inside. And I'm thinking to myself, well, what kind of inside job is he talking about? Is he talking about the inside job to rubber stamp the agenda of this Republican Congress? Because if he is, we don't want it. If he's talking about the inside job of letting oil companies write the energy policies and insurance companies writing the health care policies and outsourcers rewriting our tax code, we don't need that. If he's talking about the inside job where politicians in Washington are controlling the health care choices that women are perfectly capable of making for themselves, we'll take a pass. We don't need an inside job. We want to change Washington. I've always said, change is hard. It takes more than one term or even one president. And you know what, the way our democracy works, we're never going to get everything that each of us individually want, but if we're working together, you know, you can make things happen. Now, you can't make it happen if you write off half the nation before you take office. You know, it's interesting. In 2008, 47% of the country did not vote for me. They voted for John McCain. But on election night, in Grant Park in Chicago, I said to all those Americans who didn't vote for me, I said, I may not have won your vote, but I hear your voices. And I need your help, and I will be your president too. That's what I said. So, I don't know how many votes I'll get in Ohio this time, but no matter who you are, no matter what party you belong to, and I want everybody who's listening on television to understand, I will be fighting for you. Because I'm not fighting to create Democratic jobs or Republican jobs. I'm fighting to create American jobs. I'm not fighting to improve blue state schools or red state schools. I'm fighting to improve schools in the United States of America. The values of hard work and personal responsibility, those values that we believe in don't just belong to workers or businesses or the rich or the poor, the 53% or the 47%, the 1% or the 99%. Those are American values. They belong to all of us. You know, so I want you guys to understand, we are not as divided as our politics suggests. I still believe, no matter how many times I'm called naive about this, I still believe that we have more in common than divides us. I still believe in that. I still believe in one nation and one people. I still believe in you. And I'm asking you to keep believing in me. And if you do, I need you to register to vote. I need you to start voting 6 days from now on October 2nd. And if you're with me, and if you work with me, we'll win Wood County again. We'll win Ohio again. We'll finish what we started. We'll remind the world why the United States of America is the greatest nation on earth. God bless you, everybody. God bless America.
Knocking on the door that holds the throne.